Hello friends, Adam here with FED. So I've been thinking a lot about the knife weapon type from Fire Emblem. It's really only appeared in 3 different games, and they've been vastly different in all 3 appearances. They appeared in Path of Radiance as a very, very weak thief exclusive weapon that could only really is just to give thieves something to attack back with. But I don't know why they just didn't give them swords at this point, because they're honestly really bad. Like horrible weapons. There's only 3 of them, and they all have just stupidly low might and little to no utility. The stiletto is the most interesting one, and even that one is like not even that good. Then Radiant Dawn made it a very robust weapon type. There are tons of different kinds of knives and daggers to use, and sadly they still are only tied to thieves, and you only get a few of those. I think that's what holds it back in that game in particular. I think knives could have been a really fun, cool weapon type if it wasn't unlocked to units like Soth and Heather. And, you know, Volk, but you don't get him until the very end of the game. And then we get to Fates. We get to Fates, and knives are implemented as kind of like, I don't know if they're called daggers in that game ever, but knives and shuriken, right? They are like hidden weapons, you can call them. Very interesting weapon type in that game that really made them, I think people consider them the best in the game. At least I do. I think they are the best weapon type in Fates. Perpetual 1-2 range, like literally always. And they debuff the enemy. And they can get strong enough to be just deal damage, you know? So I think there needs to be a happy medium if knives were ever to return. And I do want them to return. Don't get me wrong. I think knives are really cool. Really fun weapon type, and they really fit with, like, I don't know, I would love like the ninja class to return, or a more traditional looking thief to return. So that would be really cool to have knives again. So what would I do? How would I change knives from their past iterations to bring them into a more modern Fire Emblem, something like a 3 Houses? And what I think it comes down to is make knives a separate weapon type, like they are in those games, but make them more accessible to other classes. And that's something that 3 Houses already has anyways. Every unit can use every weapon type, excluding magic. You have to be in specific magic classes, I get that. But outside of that, all physical weapons can be used by anybody. So that would alleviate that issue. But I also really like the utility that they had in Fates, but they were too strong. They were too good. So what I would want to see is that kind of a mesh between Fates and Radiant Dawn, where there are the 1-2 range options, but they're just like incredibly weak. Like I'm talking like 1 might, maybe even 0 might in some cases, that do debuffing. But then also give a more powerful option in like daggers that are 1 range, but they are, you know, maybe a little weaker than swords, but have higher crit than swords and have higher hit than swords, something like that, and make them really light, right? And those daggers, maybe they wouldn't debuff like the knives would. So I think that would make for a really interesting balance between the two. And I think it would make it a much more interesting weapon type to go up against as well. Because in Fates, fighting knife enemies and shuriken enemies was the worst, because they just debuffed you to heck and back and you were awful. But and in the player's hand, they were just broken, right? So I just had that little thought. This is a quick, short video. I like knives. I want knives to return, and I think I would want them to return in that sort of fashion. But let me know in the comments. What do you think? What would you like to see return as a weapon type in Fire Emblem in general? Maybe we'll talk about another one. But in particular, knives this time. Knives/daggers or hidden weapons. How would you like them to be implemented in a future game in the series? Let us know in the comments. How would you do it? Which game would you model after, or would you do something completely new? If you want to do something completely new, I'd love to hear about that as well. But please subscribe if you aren't subscribed to the channel yet. Like the video before you leave. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time, friends.